Hello and welcome to Hate Read, the series on my channel where the one rule for a book to be considered a hate read is I have to have read it more than once. And today I'm going to be talking about Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. This is the second time I'm filming this video. The first time, like right in the beginning, my mom called me and then I film on my phone. So when I came back to finish it, it was filming vertically and not horizontally, and I didn't notice. So I have to refilm it now. I read Norwegian Wood for the first time when I was 20 years old. I was still in college and I hated it just as much as I hated it this time reading it. With Akatar, the hate reads I've done before this one, those were like a love to hate. This one, I just hate. I just hate this book with so much of my being, and I will be getting into why that is. I'm not doing a summary. If you are interested in what this book is about, you can go look it up for yourself. I'm not going to waste my time doing that because in my opinion, the summary doesn't even like really represent like the experience of reading the book, so it really doesn't matter. But just to get started, just in my reading experience, some pet peeves I had during it. One of the main ones was I read it in tandem with the audiobook, and what the narrator, a lot of the words actually that the narrator would say were different from what was written, and it kind of started to drive me crazy because I think they tried to like edit it a bit so it would like maybe sound more normal to English speakers, but in my opinion what was written was better than what was being said, and it was just more annoying than anything, so it's whatever. The narrator's voice was annoying. Could not stand his voice, but I guess that represents Toru pretty well. This book only has 11 chapters and it's like just under 300 pages, and the chapters are so long. They're so long, and there's nothing about a book that can make it feel like it's taking you forever to finish it than long ass chapters. The main reason why I hate this book. So the book is centering around Toru and Naoko, and this book is advertised as a romance, and there's absolutely nothing at all romantic about the relationship between Toru and Naoko. It becomes pretty clear in the story that Naoko has a mental illness, but despite that, at every opportunity, Toru is really only worried about her body and interacting with her sexually. The first time they end up having sex, it is at, I believe, on her birthday. And after she has been sobbing violently, like crying so hard, she's like shaking and like can't control herself. And I think she stops and he initiates sex with her, and it's her first time too. So afterwards, Toru even asks himself, he's like, oh, should I have done that? Like, was that a good idea? And it's like, no, Toru, it was not a good idea at all. And his stroke game was so absolutely atrocious that he put her in a mental hospital. She ends up going to a mental hospital because he like tries to go see her, like I think maybe a few days later, I don't know, and she's not there, and he's like, where'd she go? And he, I think, calls her house and no one answers, and then he just writes her a letter, and then she writes back saying that she is in an institution to help her with her mental health. Not only the sexual interactions between Toru and Naoko make me uncomfortable, but every sexual interaction that happens in this book makes me incredibly uncomfortable, but it's mainly Toru and Naoko's sexual interactions. I do partially blame the translation. I just have a little bit of beef with translated books because there's always a distance. There will, I don't think, ever not be a distance when it comes to translated books, and obviously it'll never be as good as actually reading it, but with just the wording and the different contexts, and in almost every interaction there is lack of clear consent. So both parties may be, okay with it, but it's never like spoken about. It's just things that kind of happen, and I really don't like that. Toru ends up going to visit Naoko at where she's staying, and there's a part that, in my opinion, really shows how mentally ill Naoko is and how Toru shouldn't be trying to interact with her sexually at all. So I don't know how any of this stuff was allowed, but for whatever reason, however that place works, Naoko has a roommate who's like this older woman who I will be getting to. Her name's Reiko, and he's allowed to stay in their room, and I think he like sleeps on the couch or something, and like in the middle of the night he can't sleep, and Naoko gets up and she comes to like sit in front of him just completely naked, and she just does nothing. She just sits there, and Toru's obviously looking at her body, and he's like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, blah blah blah. And then she puts her clothes back on and goes back to bed, and then the next morning she has no recollection of doing that, and he's like looking at her weird, and he's like, did she know she do that, da, da? And she's like, why are you looking at me like that? And it's like, she has a mental illness and should not be trifled with. But then after that, they have a conversation of like why Naoko is there, the difficulties she's having, and the reason why Naoko and Toru are friends in the first place is because they had a mutual friend, Kizuki, I'm pretty sure is his name. I don't remember. I don't have his name in my notes, and I do not have the book with me anymore. He took his own life when they were 17, like around that age, and he was Naoko's boyfriend and Toru's best friend, and he took his life. And Naoko talks about how, in telling him like why she's there, that occasionally she hears Kizuki calling to her, telling her to come with him, to come to where he is. That is obviously a very concerning thing to tell somebody, right? To reveal that you hear your long dead boyfriend who took his life calling you to come with him. That's incredibly concerning. But you know what happens after she tells him that? They're like in this field or something, and he's holding her, and she asks him if he's hard. I really do wish I was joking, but I'm not. That is what she does. And I think something happens between them, but I don't remember, and I really don't care. And then later, I believe it's when he visits again, Naoko then tells Toru about how she found her sister, who is also someone who took her life, and she found her. It wasn't, she heard her sister took her own life. No, she was the one who found her sister. And it is a horrific story, and it is a horrific tale, and something that no one should ever have to go through. And instead of Toru comforting her, instead of him looking at her and being like, maybe, we shouldn't, like, you shouldn't worry about romantic things with me. No, immediately Naoko turns around and is like, so yeah, I'm really messed up, and you really shouldn't worry about me anymore. Like, I know you haven't been like hooking up with other girls and stuff, but you shouldn't try to wait for me. And she tells things about like her sexual history that is just unnecessary in my opinion, and like she's like explaining her issues physically with him. She tells him that she's broken physically and mentally, and he shouldn't waste his time on her. And once again, instead of Toru, being like, I don't believe you're broken in any way, shape, or form, but I understand that you need to work on yourself and prioritize yourself and not even worry about me. Nope, he doesn't do that. He tells her that I think he doesn't care or something along those lines, and that he's okay with like waiting for her, blah, 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 all this stuff. And because Naoko, I guess, feels a little bad that they can't do it, she uses her mouth on him. And it's just like, once again, Naoko is telling these very concerning tales about the trauma she has. And immediately after goes into them doing something physically. There is nothing at all whatsoever that is romantic about their relationship or the depiction of it. It only shows how selfish and irresponsible of a character that Toru is, because it's not impossible to be in a relationship with someone who has a mental illness, but it doesn't make it easy when you don't at all take into consideration the effects that their mental illness has on them, and you're only trying to use them physically, which is the vibe I get. Toru says he's in love with her, but I don't think he is. So the story centers Toru and Naoko, but there are these other main side characters, Midori and Reiko. With the introduction of Midori, who is a girl who goes to Toru's university, this was the point in the book where I kind of started to hypothesize, you could say, that this story was just one big, somewhat sick fantasy for Murakami. Just him fantasizing about the women he wished he could be around. In the description, Midori is described as a sexually liberated woman, but in my opinion, she just doesn't have any boundaries and enjoys to be lusted after by men. And even in the translator's notes, it talks about how Murakami was surprised at how internationally successful Norwegian Wood is, and how he would describe his university years as boring and uneventful, and that Toru's was a lot more exciting. I wouldn't use the word exciting, but yeah, definitely a lot goes on in Toru's experiences, but he's just not a good person at all, or a good character in my opinion. Yeah, he's not a good character. And again, with Midori, there's a part where she's telling Toru about a drunken fantasy where Toru ends up assaulting her. I don't know if it was an attempt to be comedic, but even so, nothing is funny about that. And yes, you can take into account Japanese culture and society, but that stuff just isn't okay. Even if a woman is saying it, nothing about assault is okay. The very first time I read it, I left a review on Goodreads about this point I'm about to make. Midori is just saying how when she's on her period, she's gonna start to wear a red hat so everybody can know that she's on her period. And Toru's like, man, I wish all girls would do that. It's shut up. That stuff is so annoying. I just didn't even know why it was in there. And the first time I read it, I literally didn't want to read past it, because I was like, can more ridiculous things happen? How many weird and internalized misogynistic things is Murakami gonna make these female characters continue to say? Because it's absolutely ridiculous. And then there's another part with Midori where Toru is being stern with her because I think she wants them to sleep in the same bed or something, and he's like, you need to be careful, I haven't gotten laid in a minute, so I might force myself on you. And it's what kind of warning is that? Why? There's just so many things I just don't understand about why different things are written in this book. Midori is supposed to be another romantic interest, but again, there's nothing romantic about it. It's nearly every woman he comes across in these stories is just Toru is so interesting and you're so cool and so funny, you have such an interesting way of speaking, and he's literally not doing anything. It's go off, I guess. I really don't care. And now time for my least favorite character in this book, Reiko. So like I said earlier, she is Naoko's roommate, and she's disgusting. I genuinely despise her as a character. She's a creep, and her background proves that point. So she gets 10 pages of backstory, where she's talking about all this stuff. She used to be a piano teacher, and she's at that place with Naoko because she has her own issues as well. And I'm not even going to go into it because it really doesn't matter. But at the time she's telling the story, she's married and has a kid, okay? And she tells a story about how there was like this pretty little girl that lived down the street from her, and she wanted to take piano lessons from Reiko. But Reiko was just like reluctant to do it, and she really didn't want to. But essentially, for whatever reason, somehow she starts giving her piano lessons. And she talks about how this girl was, you know, like a snake. She was super manipulative. She lied for fun. She can make you believe anything, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. That girl is or was 13. Reiko was 31. Reiko makes it sound like that 13-year-old seduced her, but there is nothing. That is not possible. That is not something that can happen. She ends up hooking up with this 13-year-old, and even though she's like, oh, you know, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this, she does it anyway. And she like slaps her or something to like get her to stop and leave her alone. Reiko slaps the little girl, and she's like, you're a closet lesbian, I don't know why you try to hide it, like da 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 blah blah blah. Like, and Reiko tries to make it sound like because she knew she was attracted to women, she was able to seduce her. It is not possible for a 13-year-old to seduce a 31-year-old. I don't care. I don't care what she has to say. I don't care about any of that. Reiko is just disgusting and gross. And it's very frustrating how much page time she has. I just hate her as a character. And the ending makes me hate her even more. The ending. Unfortunately, Naoko ends up taking her own life. Toru gets a letter from Reiko saying that Naoko's gone. And he doesn't get the full story until him and Reiko meet up. She comes to his place so they can like catch up. But when Toru first finds out, he's like reminiscing, and the first thing he starts to think about is all the times they've hooked up, her body, how beautiful she was, all these things. And it's like really showing where his priorities lie. He does get like a little bit more sentimental about like they used to go on these walks and stuff, or just like all these things, but like for the most part he just like misses her body. So Reiko comes to visit, and they just talk, or Reiko tells him what happened, how it happened, all that stuff. And weirdly, Naoko left like all her clothes to Reiko, and Reiko is there wearing one of Naoko's shirts. I just think that's super weird. So like the last 5 pages of the book, like I said, Reiko plays multiple instruments. She used to be a music teacher, whatever, and she has this guitar that she brought with her, and she plays 55 songs. 55 songs, and like all of them are listed near the end, and they're all like, or not all of them, but probably like the majority of them are songs that like Naoko liked and like would ask Reiko to play for her. And so it's like an homage to Reiko. And after the 55th song, Reiko stops playing. Reiko is like an older woman. Like multiple times throughout the story, Toru describes her face as like wrinkly. And Toru is in college. I think he's 19. I think he turns 19. He might turn 20. I think he turns 20. I don't remember, but he's young. She's significantly older than him, okay? She finishes playing that 55th song and goes, do you want to do it? And Toru goes, yeah. And they end up going 4 rounds in Naoko's honor. When I was reading it, I was getting to the end, and I was like, they hook up, don't they? I'm like, am I tripping? Like, did I like fever dream the end of this book? No, it's like the last 2 pages, and I really just had to laugh. And it's so ridiculous. This book is a joke. I stand by the fact that I believe this book is just Murakami fantasizing about all the different potential women he could have interacted with. All these women who find him super attractive and want to do nothing but hook up with him. It's just all so ridiculous, and I hate this book. If I could have gave it 0 stars, I would have, but I gave it 1 star. It has like an average 4 stars at least on Goodreads, and I'm very confused as to how that is. The writing isn't bad, I will give it that, and I understand why people would find the conversations around, or like the introspection around loneliness and feeling lonely, comforting and like relatable. But with the blatant misogyny, the internalized misogyny, rape jokes, insinuation of assault of any kind, and the disregard for someone's mental health for selfish satisfaction is something that I cannot get behind. And it is something I cannot get over. If I could have burned that book, I got it from the library. If I could have burned it, I would have, but I didn't. Have you read Norwegian Wood? Do you hate it as much as I do? Do you find as many problems with it as I do? It's just, it was a slog of a read for me. But I wanted to make this video, so I was like, I have to read it, and I did, and I never will again. I still want to read more Murakami. I have a few of his books. I own a few. We'll see if I want to keep them afterwards. I know Norwegian Wood isn't normally the kind of book he makes, and then also that misogyny is kind of a problem in his stuff, if I'm not mistaken. I generally don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that before. But I will give him another shot. Yeah, this is the only Murakami book I've read, and I hated it. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of me and hear how good of a singer I am, you can check out my music channel and original music, all under the name of Shy Fighter. Like if you want to like, subscribe if you want to subscribe. I don't know, do whatever you would like to do. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you when I see you. Farewell.